its point of view and given what the world is like.
Okay, right you are. I shouldn't have been putting it in terms of happiness, because Leibniz does say that about happiness. But on this, put it another way then, on the sort of account that you give, it looks as if there's some sense in which what each substance really wants is to perceive the best state of the is to perceive the best of all possible universes in its successive states, because that's what controls its action. And you know, I mean, from sort of a pop psychological point of view, there seems to be some point in saying, if you want to know what somebody really wants, look at what they do. Look at what they, in fact, go for. And it would seem to be not all that odd to think that, you know, I really want the universe to be orderly more than I want my next state to be pleasurable. And so I don't know.
Well, let's see. Again, just mentioning again something I said to Don. I don't think that any monads other than the rational perceive the universe as a whole. Mm-hmm. So what all monads perceive are the elements, the constituents of the universe as a whole. And I think it's very important the way I'm looking at things that very often what a monad does is something for which it did not want, something it didn't want in any way whatsoever. But whatever it does do results from this endlessly many perceptions and responsive appetitions, which I think are sometimes responsive to stability, you know, to things going on as they've gone on. And so that's what it is that I think is really driving the monad, all the monads from one state to the next state, which happens to be the best possible, not because they want the universe to be that way, but just because, among other things, at bottom, they want things to go on the way they've been going. It's the kind of inductive stability.
If I could press one more related question here, how could Leibniz be thinking that the substances don't perceive the universe as a whole, or don't, at some very confused level, perceive everything in the universe, given, and this be what operates causally in them, given that he holds, I take it, that there's no fact about the universe that's causally irrelevant to any other fact in it. There's some causal connection one way or another.
Well, I think that the monads, like the low-level monads, as I said, perceive everything in the universe, every body and every change in the universe, but don't perceive all the relations among them. Their perceptions contain information from which some other mind could derive information about the relations among them, but that's not something perceived by the monad. So
but their appetition is responsive to the resultant of the whole,
no,
which is a systemic...
No, that's not what I want to say.
Yeah?
I want to say the appetency is responsive to a future state of each component of it, such that, should that be realized, the relation among the whole will be the best possible and the most harmonious. But what's desired is that the motion of individual bits of it, which happen to have that result, which does not figure into the motivational structure of the monad.
Perhaps there we could introduce a further. Yes, thank
you. Thanks. My name is Monty Johnson. And I'm afraid I have a rather naive Aristotelian kind of question that I've put to Dawn many times. But you touched on it in your paper. And what I want to know about is what possible account Leibniz can give of plants. Because it seems to me that if he goes for one kind of appetite, plants will be assimilated to animals. And if he goes for the lower kind of appetite, plants will be assimilated to things like fire and the elements. And this is a big issue about the order of nature in antiquity. Some people went so far as to say plants aren't living things and don't have souls. And others said, well, they're like animals. They must be able to perceive and so forth. And Aristotle's very, very clear about this. And it seems to me that he wants to set desire and appetite at a very specific point for animals to make this important distinction about where plants exist in the order of nature. But I just can't figure out what Leibniz can say about that.
Leibniz has, I'm thinking, notions of cognition that are not restricted, as they are for Aristotle, I think, to sense and intellect. So we know that he's saying there are non-sensory perceptions and there are non-conscious and certainly non-rational perceptions. So I am relying on that to get in the monad that animates every living thing, and there is such a thing there because every living thing is a source of change, so there has to be a monad in it. I'm relying on that and the thought that even the most rudimentary of it, even a plant, and heaven knows we could get more simple than that, more rudimentary than that, is responsive to its environment in ways that are quite plain to us, just on the basis of what we assume about its needs and what it needs to do in order to fulfill its needs, in order to perform its particular nutritional and reproductive functions, and so on. So that it gears its activity, it gears what the plant does to the environment in view of what needs to be done to sustain its life. So the monad will have to be representing all of that. And that's where the notion that there are these perceptions of the environment within the monad, and there are these responses to it that do lead the monad along the path, which is then exemplified by the body of the living thing. And this will be true in general for living things. They do perform some kind of vital functions that are responsive to changes in the environment.
But
And
non-living things.
Well, I actually am interested in knowing from Marilyn whether Aquinas' view of fire is such that it is responsive to environmental change. I mean, is it just always rising, or does it not have this desire or this tendency to rise when something is preventing it from rising? Or
it has the tendency, but it's its
yeah,
expression is
yeah,
obstructed.
yeah. So it's stable.
then
That's what I mean. It's
plants
not.
are like the elements. His account has to be that the same type of appetite that operates what Aquinas says is functioning in the case of fire there's essentially no difference between that and what happens for plants, except for a level of complexity or something.
Well, yeah, but that makes all the difference. that the appetite is directed to different things and varying things as varying things are registered in its perceptions. That's where the cognitive appetitive nature of what goes on in a monad, I think, precisely there, that it differs from what goes on in fire on that kind of view.
I'm conscious of two further questions, now three. Could we take yours at the back, then we'll come with tea.
Oh, is it for me? Yes, it does.
I'm the last.
Sorry, has one question? Let's have yours.
Just come up here.
So I have a kind of two-part question. The first part has to do with